And welcome into another edition of 310 to Left, presented by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years, and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Natalie Noury here with you alongside my friend J.P. Ricciardi, Tom Karen with the day off. Not sure, J.P., why they left the show to the kids, but certainly happy to be here talking with you and catching up. I haven't seen you since, I think, July 2nd, July 3rd-ish. So just to start, how are you and how was the 4th of July for you?
Everything was great. I'm doing well. And let me rephrase something. You're the kid. I'm the older person here.
No, I mean, between myself, Cooper Boardman, and you, I think you fit in pretty well, JP. But we certainly try to.
Very good group.
We try to keep up with you. That's for sure. I have to say, whenever you're broadcasting with Cooper, I love everybody you work with. But for some reason, when you like a big brother, little brother kind of thing, just the banter between you both. The way that he kind of pumps your tires and you seem to deflate it a bit. How much fun is it to work with him and the rest of the crew in Worcester?
I got to tell you, the guys in Worcester are great. Every one of them. I mean, they're all going to do well in this game. I think Cooper's already got a taste of the big leagues. Jim and Mike and Jay and Alex are all great. And obviously, Natalie does a super job. I'm excited to watch where your future goes, because it's a lot of fun. Very professional group, but they like to have a few laughs, which is even better.
Yeah, no, we've had some good one-liners throughout the year already. I feel like it's always fun. You never know what you're going to expect every day. What's been fun is you've been bringing your family to the ballpark. We've met Mariano, Dante. How cool is it to have the family see you at work?
Oh, it's fun. I mean, they've been watching it their whole life, so they're not, trust me, no one's impressed in my family.
I know you have 43 years of a resume. What's a few more at Polar Park? So that's awesome. We love having you there. But of course, next time I see you will, I think, be the end of July, around trade deadline time of life, I guess. But a lot of news to talk about. Of course, the Red Sox have been red hot. Worcester is looking pretty good as well. We've seen a couple of rehabbers down in Worcester, so things have been exciting down at that level. But from the rehabbers, Worcester, Boston, we're going to cover a lot over the next hour with you. But just want to get things started with the talk about Alex Bregman. Of course, this is something that's kind of been speculated. We've been seeing it online. I'd say even as soon as after the game last night, my X was going crazy. Sources saying that the Boston Red Sox are optioning Isaiah Campbell, optioning forgetting who the other option is there. But as far as, what they're speculating on, Alex Bregman, Hunter Dobbins expected to be active in tonight's game, potentially play in tonight's game. Now, we know this is a live show, so we don't have confirmation yet whether they'll be back in the lineup, and we'll get to Hunter Dobbins a little bit later. But as far as Alex Bregman goes, whether we see him tonight, see him tomorrow, see him this weekend, how much of a boost will that be to an already hot Red Sox team?
Well, I think what's encouraging is he's coming back sooner than expected. And I think that's a testament to him and the training staff being able to get him back that quick. I think the fact that the club is playing really well and they're swinging the bats really well, this is just another positive bat to put in that lineup. So this is all good news for the Red Sox and welcome addition. You start getting a veteran presence in that lineup, and all of a sudden, the lineup keeps getting lengthening out, and the lineup's been really, really good the last 2 weeks. So I'm excited to see Bregman come back, and I'm really, really excited the fact that he's come back sooner than expected, which I think is going to be a major, major boost. It's almost like them adding someone at the trade deadline.
Yeah, now, of course, the other speculated option was David Hamilton. So that all fresh information. Again, we don't have confirmation yet whether that is actually happening. Things might change by the time the game rolls around tonight. But as far as Alex Bregman returning to the lineup, you've talked about 1 through 9 producing runs. The bats are hot. What do you think that'll do not only to the lineup, but also to the infield as things start to move around and just the roster kind of thickens there?
Well, I think with Hamilton going down, I think it clears a spot for Meyer to go play second base and be consistently playing in one position. He's a very good defender. As you know, you've seen him play a lot in Worcester. He catches the ball really well. But I think that this makes them a better defensive club. I think he moves to second. Bregman goes to third. Obviously, Story stays at short, and then they keep running guys at first base. But I think you get a little bit more solidification in the infield. Defensively, I think you go up. And I think the fact that everybody kind of knows where they're going to be playing, especially a young player like Meyer, who it's a little bit more of a comfort zone when you come to the park and know I'm going to be in the lineup, but I'm going to be playing the same position defensively, and I don't have to juggle playing short, second, third, and then, also trying to hit. So I think for a young player to know where he's going to play is very, very important. And I think just this really stabilizes the infield. And they have not caught the ball real well all year. So maybe this solidifies them defensively even more.
Yeah, to talk about that stability and just solidifying, that area. Another thing that's been interesting to talk about this year is just the veteran status of some of these Red Sox players, how young some of these Red Sox players are. I know in Bregman's, his absence there, I think Jaron Duran has kind of been looked to as someone who's, leading the next generation. But how beneficial is it to have a man like Alex Bregman back, especially as you head to All-Star break, the second half of the season, when you think about the longevity of this team and if they can be a postseason team? Is Alex Bregman going to be a solution for that veteran leadership that they're looking for?
Well, I think when you watch the Red Sox, at which I know you spend a lot of time when you're not in Worcester watching them, Bregman has impressed me so much. He's always on the front step of the dugout. He's always talking to someone, whether it's Giolito about what he's doing, whether it's the young guys coming over to him and asking him for advice, asking him what they see, what he sees. He has been a very noticeable out front veteran player. And it's when you got those kind of guys with that type of experience and they're passing it on to the young kids and helping them get through experiences that they're going through, and even being able to go to the veteran players and pointing out something, the veteran player is going to listen to a veteran player. So I think what Alex Bregman has done doesn't happen too often, where a guy who's on a rehab situation stays in the dugout, stays the whole game, and passes on his wisdom and what he's seeing. I think it's like having another coach, and especially the young guys. They're going to really just be like a moth to a flame to him. So he's really showed me something as far as not being able to contribute on the field, but contributing while he's still rehabbing.
Yeah, and that's just as important to have that presence on the sidelines and supporting the team on the sidelines. We saw a clip in the game the other night, Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony standing together, and Bregman comes in between them and starts, chopping it up with them, just talking about things. And you have to, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with those kinds of conversations, because you got 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and then you got Alex Bregman, kind of like the dad of the group, and what he kind of offers to that. So it is interesting to see what he's done. And, we've talked about the infield. We've talked about the movement there. As far as the first base situation, I'd be interested what continues to happen there. But, it's someone who also was rehabbing, Masataka Yoshida. He was someone we got to see in Worcester for a few days. He went to Portland. I don't know if you saw him in that Scooby-Doo jersey. Masa must love rehabbing when it's theme nights in minor league baseball. But as far as the rehab went, we saw him DH. We saw him in left field for a couple of innings before going to Portland. What did you see from his rehab, and how do you think that kind of set him up for that big MLB debut on Wednesday night?
Well, I think the most important thing is this is guys coming off a shoulder injury. And what I would like to see the Red Sox do is not put him in a position to recreate an injury situation, whether it's in the outfield or first base. I would not like to see them put him at first base, because he really hasn't played first base. And I hate to see a guy play a position that he hasn't played for the first time in the big leagues, and then all of a sudden put himself in a position from a defensive standpoint that he has to make a play that he's never made before. And, there's a lot of things that go into playing first base that people don't realize. They think you could put anybody there, but it's a very, very difficult position. And, when you put a guy there coming off a rehab, he's a little hesitant. Should he reach? Should he do this? Should he do that? So I'd like to see them keep him as the DH until they get everything sorted out. I think he's a bat the ball guy. He's got good skills with the bat. He's going to bring him some veteran presence offensively. So for me, I think he's a welcome addition, but I'd like to see him just stay in the DH role until they kind of work him through the outfield and let him get a little bit more reps where he can get back healthy and be a little bit more confident. But I think the nice thing about him coming back that we need to keep in mind here is there's a lot of flexibility in this lineup now for Alex Cora. And I think that that's going to work in their favor as they come down the stretch, especially with matchups. So having another veteran bat is nothing but good things for the Red Sox.
Yeah, we've heard Alex Cora kind of mention it's a good problem to have right now when you have so many options. If you were Alex Cora and you had, the stacked outfield that you do, deciding who to sit, who to play, is that tricky? And how would you kind of ration out the playing time the way that you see the Red Sox right now?
Well, there's certain guys that have to play.
Mhm.
Rafaela has to play. He's on fire. Abreu brings him power. Duran is like the engine that starts them and gets them going. Story obviously is a big money guy. He's got to be in the lineup. What I would like to see is Anthony and Meyer play a little bit more, be consistent in the lineup because I think they're young players. And Anthony is obviously becoming a very good player at the big league level. I think you're just starting to see him scratch the surface now that he's getting comfortable. I'm excited to watch the rest of July, August, and September. I think he's going to take off. I think you know how highly I feel about him. I think Meyer consistent at bats would help him, but he's got some different ebbs and flows to go with the lineup. I think the most underrated guy in the lineup has been Romy Gonzalez. I think he's been
Mhm.
unbelievable for power, a good hitter. He can run. He brings a lot to the table. I mean, it was a kind of an under the radar pickup, but he brings a lot of balance to that lineup because he's right-handed. He gives you quality at bats. Like I said earlier, I think they got a great problem in front of them, how to mix and match, and Cora can just do it with starting pitches. And I know it isn't prevalent in our game today, but the resources he has on the bench, if the other team goes to the bullpen, he's got a lot of matchups that other team has to think about before they come in with bullpen help. So I like their lineup a lot, and I like the depth in that roster right now.
Romy Gonzalez he's been a ton of fun to watch. And I don't really know, because you said he was kind of an under the radar pickup. He was someone that he started last year in Worcester, was gone within a few weeks. But as far as what he's been doing lately, I don't know if there's been a difference or something has clicked for him. I don't know if it's because, with the first base situation, he ended up receiving a little more playing time this year. But Romy Gonzalez, I'm very impressed with him. He's a lot of fun to watch right now. And with someone with his skill set, his stature, he's a very strong guy. How do you see him fitting in the long term here as you look at this season, just in its entirety?
Well, you got a couple of things you can do with him. You can play him at first base, which he's starting to get more
Mhm.
comfortable there, and you can DH him. So, like I said earlier, the lineup has so much flexibility in it, but this guy is a right-handed hitter, which they don't have a lot of, and he's got power. So to me, he's a guy that has to be in the lineup every day. And he's a nice problem to have. But man, I've been really, really impressed with him over the last few years, watching him develop at the major league level, because I didn't really think he was this good a player. But once you get to see a guy play more and more, he's been very, very impressive.
I don't think a lot of people expected this, but it's been a lot of fun. Not to say that he didn't have it in his toolbox, but I mean, to see him emerge right now in a time where they didn't have Alex Bregman and lost Devers and that kind of stuff, it's exciting to see someone like him emerge. But a couple more that you mentioned in Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer. Last night, for example, the 4 runs were driven in by those two, of course, also Cedon Rafaela. But Marcelo's RBI double, I think, went 108 off the bat, 108.7. Cora calling it probably his best at bat of the season. What do you think of Marcelo, of Roman, what they're able to do right now, and how they've just risen to the occasion since joining the show?
Well, I think Meyer, right now, his defense is a little bit ahead of his offense. I think he's got a little bit of swing and miss, especially against left-handed. So Cora's protecting him and not exposing him so much to left-handed pitching, which I think is a very good thing to do. Try to ease him into comfortable at-bats. But eventually, he's going to have to be an everyday player, and he will be an everyday player. I think the knock on him for me right now is he gets a little big when he's facing left-handed pitching, and he needs to just use the other side of the field. But he's going to be a very, very good player. He's an excellent defensive player, moves really well at short, excellent at third, very good at second. So I think in the end, you're going to have a really good defender with power that's going to hit home runs. But I really like what Cora's doing with him. He's kind of keeping him out of some tough spots, letting him be in positions where he could be successful. And he's got that liberty with the lineup and the flexibility in the roster. As far as Anthony goes, I think he's going to just hit the ground and take off. I mean, I've never been higher on a player than I have with Roman Anthony, and I've seen him since he was in high school. So I've kind of got the baby version up to the adult version here. But when you watch that kid play and you watch his takes at the plate, his takes and his balance are the signs of what good young hitters do. He does not chase bad pitches very often. He stays hard through the middle of the field, hard the other way. When he starts pulling the ball on pitches he knows he can pull, this kid is going to be an absolute superstar.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing what they're going to do, especially being so young and the whole career ahead of them. But of course, we'll keep this going on the other side. JP and I are going to talk about Kristian Campbell and a few others right here on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. We'll see you in a second.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
All right, JP. Well, before we get to Kristian Campbell, David Hamilton stuff, want to talk to you about the red hot topic that you and I love talking about, Red Sox pitching. We've seen some great outings lately. Of course, Brayan Bello with his first complete game. That was awesome to see. Lucas Giolito as well. Last 6 starts with an ERA of 0.70. Between these two and what we've seen from some others, Walker Buehler, baseball's a long season, but how does pitching like this contribute to the hot streak right now?
Well, it all starts with pitching, Natalie. I don't care what anybody says, because if you can eliminate the other team from scoring runs, you're going to have success. Bello has been great. I think he's getting his secondary stuff over. He's pitching ahead in counts, and I think he's attack mode more than nibbling and trying to pick corners here and there. So I think his transformation has been more of aggressiveness on the mound and getting ahead on hitters early. I think Giolito has just been outstanding. I think he's been able to get up in the zone with his fastball really well. It's not that the fastball has unbelievable velocity. It has a hard spin rate up in the zone that's hard for hitters to see and to catch up. He comes from that real short arm action that is tough to pick up. I will say this about their pitching. Outside of Crochet, they do not have a starter that has a strikeout an inning. So pitching to contact right now is what they're getting away with. The problem I see is they're not the best defensive team. Now, obviously, with Bregman coming back, they're going to get a lot better defensively, moving guys in different positions. So it's a pitching staff that pitches to contact, and defense is going to have to be a big part of how they set their lineup up. But the pitching has been good. I think if I was the Red Sox, I know this probably leads into another segment that we'll potentially talk about here, but obviously what I see from their rotation is another arm with a little bit more power stuff would be a perfect addition to put behind Crochet. And then you could slide Bello and Giolito behind those guys and have a little bit more of a filled up rotation. But you have to give these guys credit. They're throwing strikes and they're getting results. And you can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the combination, the pitching, the defense, all has to be there. And we've talked about just continuing to address the pitching situation in Boston. I know with the deadline coming up, the trade deadline coming up, that's something you have on your mind as a former GM, scout, all that, something that, we might be seeing the Red Sox make an action on as well. We don't know yet. It will be exciting, obviously, when things come down to the last minute there. But as far as pitching and, reinforcements on the way, as you can see on the lower part of our screen there, do want to talk about Hunter Dobbins. He was rehabbing from a right elbow strain, 15-day, retroactive to June 21st. So he was in Portland. He did get a rehab start there, allowed 1 run on 2 hits, striking out 8 over 5 scoreless innings. He needed 62 pitches to get through those 5 innings. With just that one outing, was that enough to show that he was ready to be activated? And how do you think the Red Sox were looking at that?
Well, I think he's a major league player, and he's down on rehab for one reason, just to see if he was healthy and he could get stretched out. And he checked off all those boxes. So it wasn't like he went down there because he had control issues or command issues. He went down there just because of an injury set him back. So I think going to 5 innings, doing it in 62 pitches, I think he's in a good position to come back now, especially testing the elbow and knowing that he's healthy and he checks that box off. So to me, he just hit a little blip in the road. So bringing Hunter Dobbins back, I think, is a no-brainer, and penciling him right into the rotation is also something that I think will give them more depth and length in their rotation.
Now, Hunter Dobbins came over to Worcester one day just to throw a side, and he lives local to the area. I don't know if he's still living in that camper in the campground. Do you know about that story, JP?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could catch you living in a camper, but it's an efficient way to live the lifestyle, right?
Not happening. No clicker in a hotel room is about as tough as I'm going to get.
Yeah, I mean, this guy wouldn't even put on a cowboy hat for the country night over in Worcester. You didn't end up putting on the cowboy hat, did you? The hair's too
You
nice.
look better in the cowboy hat than me, so I wasn't going to try to top that.
Oh, well, you know what? I ended up forgetting it in the studio, so hopefully it's still there when we get back. If not, not the end of the world. Obviously, we have our opinions on the cowboy hats, but as far as Hunter Dobbins, seeing where he fits in right now, do you see him more as a depth guy, bullpen guy, or do you see him fitting into the starting rotation?
I think you could do anything you want to do with him. I think the biggest question and concern would be when guys go to the bullpen that haven't been in the bullpen, there's the question of can they pitch back-to-back days when they haven't done it? Can you stretch them out? Do they feel comfortable? You don't want to take a pitcher out of his comfort zone. Everybody always says, oh, make him this or make him that. But sometimes they're just not comfortable. And when you think about relief guys, sometimes they got to get up back-to-back days, and their arm doesn't bounce back from getting up in the bullpen back-to-back days. So I think that's an internal question that they know better than I would because they know the player better than I do. So I wouldn't be as quick to put him in the pen, but I think if you could keep him in the rotation, let him be your fifth starter, I think he feels comfortable doing that, and he's a really good fifth starter to have in your rotation.
Another guy that we're starting to think about where he's going to fit back in is Tanner Houck. He has one of his more efficient outings with Worcester on Wednesday. He allowed 3 hits, striking out 6. What have you seen with him in regards to what he's working through? What more needs to be done to get him back on that track to the big leagues?
I think Tanner is a little bit more of a bigger question than obviously a guy like Dobbins, who just kind of had a hiccup with his elbow. I think the biggest check marks for me with Tanner is the command of the ball. And I wouldn't be in a hurry just to run him back to the big leagues. I would take my time with him because if you got him back even at the end of July and he is what he was last year, I think you've just added a trade deadline piece. So my biggest concern with Tanner is they take their time with him, let him get back to where he was and feel comfortable where he was, and just get him to the big leagues when he's feeling right, because that's a really good arm when he's right. But right now he's not right, and he's still a little off with his touch and feel. And I'd hate to see him rush him to the big leagues and really struggle with that touch and feel because, a 3-inning rehab in the minor leagues transfers to about a 1-inning outing in the big leagues. So I would like to see them err on the side of caution with him and let him get back to what he was feeling earlier in the year, spring training wise, and even last year.
Now, Tanner did catch up with Tommy Castle over in Rochester after his last outing, saying things, we're feeling a little better mechanically. He said you could see it in the velo. Things are, taking steps, trending in the right direction. But as far as that rehab goes, how do you manage how long you keep him there? How do you manage what you look for next with him? And, in your position, your perspective, I guess, what would you do with a man in his situation, knowing that the trade deadline's coming up and that there's still a little bit of work to be done?
Right. And right now you're in the middle part of the season and every win counts. So maybe in April and May, you might be able to run a guy up there trying to figure a few things out. But right now, every game counts. And I think the message to him, and he knows he's a veteran, he's been around, we're trying to win as many games as possible. And we're going to bring you back to the big leagues, not only for our best interest, but for your best interest when you're ready, when you feel good. You are a part of what we're doing here, but we need to have the Tanner Houck we had when you're going good, and we just can't have an experiment project running out there every 4th day and give away some of those games where we're playing from behind. He's going to understand that. It all comes down to communication, and I think he's going to appreciate that, the honesty, and he knows he doesn't want to embarrass himself, and I think he's going to understand when he's right, he's going to be back in the big leagues.
I got to chat with him after I think his first rehab outing, and I really like his positivity. He's got a good head on his shoulders regarding the process and trusting his athleticism. Have you worked with him at all? Have you spoken with him one-on-one before?
I have not, but I've heard good things about him. And, part of being a really good professional is having a good attitude and understanding things. And, he understands the team's battling now. They're battling for a playoff spot. And the last thing he wants to do is come up and rock the apple cart. He wants to come up and contribute. And I think, being the type of person he is and the things I've heard about him, he's going to do what's right for the team.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a pleasure getting to catch up with him because you never know with the rehabbers if they're going to be frustrated after their outings, if they're going to be feeling like they're on cloud nine, ready to go. But, everybody in Worcester loves him. He had his arm around the clubbies coming out, giving them jokes and stuff. So I really enjoyed having him there as much as we want to see him back in the big leagues. But of course, pitching a conversation that will continue to go as the trade deadline rolls around, what the Red Sox need to do. But as far as some more AAA updates, Kristian Campbell, David Hamilton, might see them there soon. We'll talk about that after the break. And that is right here on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
All right, JP, how we doing? We've gone through some pitching. We've gone through some possible, rehabbers coming back. We've packed this show already. Excited to keep going with you. Now, next time you're in Worcester, is that the July 18th game?
Yes. Yeah, I got that weekend series. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we'll see you next then. Of course, time off. We know that you've been doing some stuff at the Wasabi Studios at Fenway. You're joining us here on 310 to Left. You're a busy guy. Can't keep up with you, that's for sure. Not here, not on the golf course, none of it. But as far as AAA goes, we'll see you there next, July 18th. But, want to check in a little bit on that level. We've got Kristian Campbell there. He was optioned back on June 20th. Sources saying David Hamilton will join the team again after being optioned. But as far as Campbell goes, he was optioned, of course, June 20th. We talked to him, I don't know if it was day of or just the day after, but he seemed like he had a good head on his shoulders. You talk about the positivity. You got to think that a move like that shakes up confidence a little bit, but he seemed like, you know what? I'm willing to do whatever it takes, whether that is first base. He played the first game of his life at first base a few weeks ago, but just seems like he's going to play where his feet are and does whatever he needs to do to get back to the big leagues. As far as that attitude goes, coming from a young kid like that and the willingness to be more versatile for this ball club, what have you seen from Kristian Campbell in AAA? Are you pleased with the progression you've seen and just the attitude overall?
Well, I think it was an initial jolt to him being sent down in the sense that, he was scuffling at the big league level, which is a very, very hard place to play as a rookie. I think there's a couple of comfort things here. One, he has a good attitude. He's got good makeup, and he's willing to embrace what he has to do to get better. Two, he's got a pretty good contract that makes him comfortable enough to have that attitude because he's not looking over his shoulder saying, am I ever going to get back to the big leagues? He's monetarily in a good spot, which most young players want to be in. What I saw in Worcester was a frustrated guy, a guy who was getting outside of what he does well. He was really expanding the strike zone. He looked like a young player who was in that scramble panic mode. Now, last night he hit a 3-run homer, so hopefully he's starting to settle down, get his feet on the ground, and realize that he is a good player, that he's not the first guy to go through any of these setbacks, and it won't be the first time he has these setbacks. It's how he handles it, and I think he's going to do well with it because he has a really good attitude. As far as positionally, I know that they've been trying to play him at first base. I don't know if in the long run that's his end-all position because I think, with Meyer being able to play second base, he's a definite upgrade at second base than anybody they've run out there. So I think positionally, that is kind of to be determined. But the thing about this guy that's so appealing to the Red Sox is his bat. And they need to get him back to what he was doing last year. And I think that is more so confidence and comfort. And I think he's going to have that comfort playing in AAA without the pressure of having every day at bats being scrutinized.
I want to talk about that jolt a little bit that you mentioned. A lot of people, the conversation around, did they bring up Kristian Campbell too soon? Did they sign him too early? Was all of that done with too much haste? And you got to remember, how great he started the season, April, of course, with Boston. But in regards to that developmental piece, Kristian Campbell was in college 2 years ago. Sometimes do you think it's a better approach to throw the player to the wolves and let them just kind of develop You talk about diamonds under pressure. Is it better to develop and go through that right away? Or do you think there's a different thing that could happen in AAA to get these players a little more prepared for the big leagues? Just I guess that jump in general, I think about it, I think how difficult it would be for me, in the minds of these players. Is it too much sometimes?
Well, that's a really good question, Natalie, and I think it's on a individual basis. Putting my scouting and player development hat on, I personally think he got rushed to the big leagues because he only played 18 games in AAA and he didn't have a stellar spring training. And I thought erring on the side of caution with him and maybe going a little slower, maybe 2 months in AAA may have been the best way to go. Now, with that being said, the Red Sox know the player a lot better than I know the player. But I think with some of these young guys, you're seeing it right in front of you. You got Anthony, you got Marcelo Meyer, and you've got Campbell. There's 3 examples of guys that have come to the big leagues and haven't exactly just taken off. Anthony's starting to ease into it. Meyer's starting to get a little better, but there is a maturation process at the major league level. And the sad part at the major league level is, in Campbell's case, when it started to steamroll on him, he wasn't able to stop it. And that's quite common with a lot of young players when you're scuffling. You look at Trevor Story, veteran player, was scuffling at the beginning of the year. Now he's starting to play better because he's been through this. There's no panic in his game. Young players panic. I don't care who they are. Usually they start saying, oh, my God, your head's spinning. I'm going to get sent down. I'm not going to do this. So in Campbell's case, I think he's in the right spot right now. Don't know if he'll come back to Boston this year, but this is going to be a really good learning situation for him. I do think he's going to end up being a very good major league player, but it's going to be in time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Trevor Story and another one, Alex Bregman, players who have been through the ebbs and the flows, the goods and the bads. Kristian Campbell saying, and Bregman was someone he actually turned to for a little bit of advice, and they tell each other, this is not the first time that you're going to go through this. It's not the first time anybody's gone through this. Just, keep perspective, keep your feet where they are, and just keep doing the work. Because again, could be working a 9 to 5, could be working a boring desk job, plugging numbers in, but instead you get to do something that you love. So I think that perspective is great, especially as we return to that veteran conversation we were having earlier too. It's nice to have those players on the team to help someone like Kristian Campbell, to help someone like a David Hamilton, who also kind of might be going through the same thing. But as far as, you mentioned, I don't know if Campbell will get back to Boston this year. We don't know that answer. But if they were to take a look at him and seriously consider bringing him back up, whether that is at first base, what more does Boston need to see from Kristian Campbell, especially in AAA, whether that's, managing the strike zone and not expanding it too much? What will it take for him to get that call?
I think the consistency is what they're looking for. I think they want to see him get back to hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball consistent, not expanding the strike zone, and just being really comfortable. Last time I saw him, he was really scuffling and he had that bad body language, not because he chose to have bad body language, but he had that little bit of a defeatist, right now things are speeding up on me. It happens. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think they need to just let him get his feet underneath him and get back to the player that he's capable of being.
In terms of the David Hamilton conversation, it's tough to silence the media, sometimes tough to silence the social media going off. I mean, David Hamilton being sent to AAA, option to AAA, is something that I feel like a lot of the fan base has been talking about. It's been spoken about, at least within the media a little bit, but for this to, not be official yet, but a conversation to have David Hamilton back in AAA, what was that decision based on? And developmentally, what more are they looking for from him?
Well, sometimes you're the odd man out. It's nothing you've done. But I guess the trade-off is, would you rather have Bregman in the lineup or would you rather have Hamilton? And so they obviously want Bregman in the lineup. And that's just odd man out. It's unfortunate, but sometimes it's just a numbers game. And right now he's the number that's out. Plus he's got options. So when you have options, you could be the guy that they send down. But, he's another guy. Go down and be ready, because you're one injury away from something happening and being right back up there. So the worst thing you can do is go down and pout and let it affect your game, because then they have a second guess to bring you back. Go down, have a good attitude, work hard, these things have a crazy way of working out, and you never know when someone's going to get hurt. So I think if he's a good pro, he'll do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, and I think about this often. I don't know if it's just my curious mind, but someone like David Hamilton, who's kind of in and out of the lineup, might be pinch running or something like that because they like his speed. Is it better for him, someone like him, to have that kind of role in the big leagues, or for him to come down to AAA and maybe get an everyday playing role position? Is that something? He's 27 years old, so you can't really think that there's much more to teach him. But like, as far as those reps go, is that something that they really focus on? Or is that just something that I'm thinking about over here?
No, I think it's a good question. I think if he was a younger player, I would say playing every day is more important. But he's pretty much a guy that's going to serve that role on any team he plays on. He's never going to be the everyday guy. Maybe on a lesser team, he would be. But I think in the Red Sox situation, he's going to be that pinch run, pinch hit, defensive specialist, anything he can do to help the team. He's kind of what, you would consider a utility guy. And, it's amazing, though, you look up and those guys end up playing 10 years in the big league. So you got to carve that niche out about what kind of player you are. If you embrace it, you could play a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we hope to see him continue to do better here and get some positivity behind him. But also, JP, wanted to bring up Kyle Harrison, someone who came over in the Raffy Devers trade. A lot of people have their eyes on him and what's expected with that. We're hearing that they're working on a few things with him in Worcester, more weapons versus lefties, a cutter, more movement with his fastball. He was only throwing 3 pitches over in the Giants organization. So he feels like it's interesting. The path that he wanted to develop on personally is something that Boston has kind of given him to work on as well. So, what do you think about what you've seen from him so far as what they're using to develop him? Is that something that you could see in the big leagues here pretty soon?
All right, so I'm going to put my player development hat on now, and I'm going to inject. I'm going to inject what I think Kyle Harrison should be working on. I don't think it's a matter of his pitches. When you watch Kyle Harrison, he's got a long arm stroke on the backside of his delivery. So his takeaway and his delivery, his arm goes a long way back to come forward. I think from a developmental standpoint, they're going to have to rework his backstroke, get him shorter on the backside so he could be more consistent on the front side. If you watch him, and I've seen him pitch a lot, and I've seen him in Worcester, he misses a lot arm side. When I say misses a lot arm side, he misses high. And if you were thinking of the batter's box, he would be missing on the left-handed batter's box a lot. And that, to me, is a sign that he's not getting his arm through the zone quick enough. And he's inconsistent in the back to get consistent out front. That's about as layman terms as I can break it down. I think his stuff is fine, but I think his release point is inconsistent, and he struggles to throw strikes because of it.
Now, I'm sure it's based on the person, but how long does something like that take to address? Like, for example, someone like Kyle Harrison, what will it take for him to address what you're talking about?
Well, that's a really good question from a developmental standpoint. And I think it's one you have to go to the player and say, we think this is the best approach to you. And I'll give you an example. When I was in Toronto, just before I got there, Roy Halladay, who ended up becoming a Hall of Famer, was a guy with a high arm slot, way over the top of his head. And he had trouble throwing strikes and putting hitters away. They took him all the way down to A ball, and they changed his arm slot to 3/4. So this would be considered high 3/4. This would be considered low 3/4. They lowered his arm slot, and when they lowered his arm slot, they reworked his whole arm action, and he started to get heavy sink on the ball, and he could throw a better slider from that arm slot. This was a guy who was in the big leagues, went all the way down to A ball, reworked his swing, came back the next year, won 15 games, the next year won the Cy Young. So there are examples out there of guys that have done it. And if I'm looking at Kyle and I'm sitting in the stands as a scout, that's the first thing I walk away with is I think his release point needs to be more consistent and shortened up on the backside.
And that's interesting. I love JP's stories. I always learn something from you. But as far as, this is kind of on that topic. And, one more before we go to break here, as far as how short or long his stint is in AAA here, it all depends on shortening that arm slot. That's what you're talking about, whether how many weeks he spends in AAA versus when he might get that call to go be with Boston.
Well, like I mentioned to you early, Natalie,
Yeah.
the Red Sox are moving into the crucial part of the schedule. They can't be having tryouts at the major league level and running a guy up there and saying, well, hopefully he can do that. They need to know that every shot, whoever takes the mound, every game gives them an opportunity to win. And right now, Kyle is not in that position. He needs to get his stuff straightened out before he can go up there and help him. He's a young guy. He's only 23. He's not done. His career isn't over. He just has to make some adjustments. And the Red Sox are smart enough to know what they have to do with him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been a joy to work with so far, and look forward to seeing, what more they do with him and how he's able to address it in AAA, and hopefully, get his position in Boston soon. But of course, you mentioned important time of year coming up. Boston, no doubt about it, they're a red hot team right now on a hot streak. Come from behind win last night, and a few more games to go before the All-Star break. We'll be right back here on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
All right, JP, this is a Red Sox podcast, so we don't talk about the Yankees much around here, but a win for them last night was a win for the Red Sox, too, as they moved into a playoff position. Obviously, JP, we were just talking about that wild card spot yesterday on the phone as we were chatting about this show, but last night's win over the Rays, it was a huge one, wasn't it?
That's the team you're chasing. You're going head-to-head with them right now. They're scuffling a little bit right now, so you're getting them at the right time. And obviously, any win going forward now is just another notch in your belt moving up the ladder. And, sometimes the schedule works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, facing Washington and Colorado gave the Sox a lot of momentum going into this series, and they won all those games. And now you're catching Tampa at the right time. So you have to take advantage of when a team's not playing well. It'd be nice to take 3 out of 4 from these guys and end the first half on a really, really good note. So you can't win 3 out of 4 if you don't get the first one. You can't sweep them if you don't get the first one. And now you've got that in your pocket. So great win last night, especially the way they battled back.
Yeah, and potentially the return of Alex Bregman this weekend for this series, potential return for Hunter Dobbins as well. How might that reinforce Boston, during such an important series and time of year?
Well, getting Bregman back is going to really make the lineup jump a little bit. He solidifies the middle of that lineup, and you've got more power. You got Abreu, you got him. Rafael is hitting home runs now. So you got some legitimacy to the lineup along with, Romy Gonzalez, who to me is one of the underrated guys in the lineup. So you've got more thump. If you look at the Red Sox as a whole, Natalie, they're 4th in Major League Baseball in runs scored. The whole Major League Baseball scene, they're 4th. They're 22nd in runs allowed. So it's pretty clear what they need. Their offense is going to be sustainable because of the different people they can put in there. Offense is the least of their problems, especially getting Bregman back. Pitching is something they need to address. And if they can get another starter and solidify the bullpen, I got the Red Sox being a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about that, obviously I've never been, on your end of a trade deadline there, but with what you see this team needs, with the pieces this team has, how might you navigate the trade deadline to address the things that you're talking about and make them, a playoff team, a second half team? What would you do as a GM?
Well, I think they're in an enviable position because they can do whatever they want to do. They have really good players that people are going to want. So they can go big, 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 or they could go small. I think they've got players in the minor leagues that people really, really like. I think they have tradable pieces down there. And they have some players at the major league level that people really like. So they're in one of the positions that most teams aren't in because they have assets that people are going to want. So whatever direction the Red Sox want to go, they're going to pretty much be able to dictate that. And that's a nice position to be in. And like I said, I think if they could add another starter and another bullpen piece, I would be happy with that for the Red Sox because I think as their put together right now. If they were to get in the playoffs, I'm not so sure their pitching depth, starting wise, is enough to be make a playoff run. I think they need one more starter.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but it's hard to silence the fans, what the fans want, the hunger that they have for this team. You were talking about, show the fans something. What do we need to show the fans here at this trade deadline? With what you're talking about here, what would that show the fans?
Well, listen, it's Boston. I don't know if you're ever going to make the
Yeah.
fans happy unless you win every year. I mean, win it all. It's such a tough fan base. But I think the fact that if they could get in the playoffs and get experience for some of these young guys, there's no downside to that. And like I said earlier, one more starting pitcher would really, really go a long way to closing that gap. Because if you look at the wild card, nobody in the wild card really scares you. Seattle's got outstanding pitching, but their offense is up and down, mostly down. So they're one team that they're competition for you, but I can't sit here and say like, wow, they really scare me. So, Tampa Bay is a team they match up well with. I don't see anybody behind them. I don't think the Angels are for real. I don't think a lot of those teams. The only team that may scare me a bit, there's two teams I'm going to give you for me. Texas, because I think they'll make a move and their pitching is pretty good. And the other team is the Orioles have played awful all year. They're starting to slowly play a little better. And if they got red hot, they've got the pieces to probably make a little bit of a run. But they're still 10 games under 500. But they are playing a little better, a little bit of a long shot. But I think the Red Sox are in a great position to solidify one of those spots.
Yeah, and I mean they moved into the spot, slightly. We were talking about, there isn't one team right now that's really taken off and taken hold of that spot. The momentum that Boston has going right now, obviously, 1 through 9 producing momentum is huge. What more do you think this team really needs? And we've addressed it already throughout the show. But as far as this series, this time of the year, the wild card spot in mind, what would really solidify that position for Boston further?
I mean, it's, we've been redundant on it, but the fact of another starting pitch, I don't know what their willingness is to give up what they have to give up. They got some good players in the minor leagues, like we mentioned earlier. But I think anything they can address, bullpen or starting pitching, is going to go a long way to helping them get through the finish line. And they're playing so well right now. This is a team that probably doesn't want the break to come because it breaks up their momentum. So hopefully they'll finish strong through the Tampa Bay series and then be able to click it back in after the deadline. So, we've got after the break, I'm sorry, but you got 3 weeks to go and there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. And I know the Yankees are definitely going to do something. So that's one team that you're competing against. Toronto, I'm not sure, will do something. And Seattle may try to add a bat, but that's going to be at the expense of some of their pitching. So they have to weigh that out. And it's, it ends up becoming a little bit of an arms race right now.
Yeah, and in terms of this series, JP, the excitement last night, we talked to Cedon Rafaela after the game. He talked about the hunger to win right now, with this lineup, this series, Tampa Bay. As far as tonight, let's look as far as tonight, with the potential of Bregman being back in the lineup, Hunter Dobbins potentially with the start. How do you see Boston tonight against the Rays, and what do you think they need to come out with to get the second win?
Well, right now it's a tale of two series, right? Two seasons. You got one team is cold, one team is hot. So, the Red Sox got to be feeling really good about themselves. Right now, you get that feeling like I just got to walk on the field and I'm better than these guys right now the way we're playing. So I think that they're feeding off that optimism. They're feeding off the success that they've had. And the other team right now, for them to be able to get them back on the win side. So right now, Red Sox have a lot going for them and the Rays don't. And I think you have to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and watching the Red Sox right now has been a lot of fun because we know that this race has kind of been down to the wire here with the All-Star break. Just in terms of that, do you, as a former GM and someone who's been through this, if you had a team playing like this right now, would you want this break or no?
No, not at all, because they're playing their best baseball. And sometimes I don't know if it's psychological or what, but it's hard to it's like when a team sits after the season and they have to sit 4 or 5 days to play a playoff game. It's hard to recreate what you've got going because you lose that everyday grind of getting to the ballpark at a certain time, eating at a certain time, doing your pregame at a certain time, everybody feeling good. You're like a well-oiled machine. And then all of a sudden the train stops. and then you got to get it going all over again. And sometimes it just doesn't click right back into gear. And timing is everything. I would not want to break if I was the Red Sox. I want to keep playing. Unfortunately, you have to adhere to the schedule.
Yeah, and I guess, more on Tampa here. How do you think the Red Sox kind of match up with them in the long run when you kind of look at what's ahead?
Well, Tampa's another club that if you look at them offensively, they really got two guys in their lineup that you have to really be afraid of. But the rest of the team is kind of made up of like the Red Sox. It's mix and match type guys. It's a team built on their strength, which is pitching, and they have good pitching. I think it's going to come down to, in the Rays case, it wouldn't surprise me if they traded their closer, Fairbanks, because he's got like $9 million owed to him next year. So the Rays will be a little bit more unconventional than maybe the Red Sox are. I think the Rays adhere to the philosophy of financially, how do we fit going into next year, and who can we move to bring something back here? So I think maybe the Rays are, in some case, the have-nots, and the Red Sox, in some case, are the haves. So I think the advantage goes to the Red Sox as far as the ability to do something. So that'd be something I think you have to watch.
All right. Well, everybody watching at home, be sure to tune in to the Red Sox tonight on Ness and JP. It's been a pleasure to have you. Always learning from you. Always like talking to you, whether it's baseball or how to swing baseball or a golf club. Keeping my head down with the golf club. We know that's a big topic. But anyways, JP, thank you so much for your time today. Great to hear your insight as always. And 310 to Left is brought to you by your New England Ford dealers in the F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. We'll see you next time. I couldn't.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.